Good morning. This is VirtualPBX admin training. Just making sure that the audio is transmitting properly. And then we'll dive right in. The training will last approximately an hour and a half. We'll be going through all of the major Dash features, as well as some of the other things that you can access via the dashboard. Please feel free to make use of the chat feature on YouTube, and I will answer any questions as they come up. We do record these trainings, so you can always leave and come back if that's easiest for you, as well as just save the URL and come back at your earliest convenience, or even send it to colleagues who may also become system admins. All right, so here we have our Dash login page, which is at dash.virtualpbx.com. You can also get there from the virtualpbx.com website. Just look for the blue bar going across the top of the page and click on the login link that's there. Now, to get logged in, we need your email address. It's your unique identifier for your user. We need your password, and then we need the account name, right? So 3 pieces of information. The account name typically is your company name, or if you signed up under just yourself, it'd be your name. Now, if for some reason you didn't get the email, or you simply forgot, over here to the bottom right, just above the sign-in bar, we have a Forgot Your Info link. You can click on that. We still need your email address. And then we need one other piece of information, and that is either your account name, right, so the company name, or a phone number that's on the account. So one of the phone numbers you added for your customers to call in to, to reach your staff. You would then click on Reset Password. This will send you an email, right, to the email address that we have on file for you. That email will have a link to get you logged in, right? And the purpose of that link is to not let you make a bunch of changes, but to actually change your password to something you'll remember. Once that happens, it logs you back out. It takes you back here to the login page. So you can retype that password you just created, as well as click on the Remember Me. Now, for system admins especially, but even for users, I do recommend bookmarking this page just to make it easier to get to in the future. But once you have your username, password, and account name, just click on Sign In. Now, I'm using an account that I have logged into several times, actually several times a week. So by default, I am being sent to my dashboard. Now, if this is your first time logging in, the system will actually take you instead to your account page, right? This is your personal account information. Now, you can always get back there. So from here on the dashboard, or actually anywhere, up here at the top, you have your name and your organization. You can click on that, and that takes you to your account page. The main thing that people change here is right here, your password. Make it something you can remember. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, also, during that initial sign-in, right, that first sign-in, the Dash wizard will come along with pop-ups, denoting what certain things are. So just be aware of it. You can skip through it if you want, or I usually just reading through it once. For me, it's been a long time, so I don't even remember everything it says. Now over here on the left, we have your, because I'm a system admin, I have the account level settings. The main thing that's actually changed here is typically your time zone. Oh, whoops, that's a technical contact, which you could also change. But here it's the time zone for the account, as well as the display language. Now for your accounts, you're gonna have, this is a test account. You have a live account. So you actually have an additional set of information here on the left. That's for your billing information. So this would allow you to see things like your current plan, your previous invoices, update your credit card, etc. Now that's not currently available as I'm recording this. Our billing team is going through an upgrade, and they're basically changing things over so that the billing information is not currently available. But hopefully in the near future, it will be there. If by chance you do need to update your credit card immediately, you're going to want to call in to our billing or account services team. That's 888-825-0800. Option 4 or option 5 will get you to either of those teams. Once you're done here under your account page, over here at the top right, beneath your name, click on Close. Right now, that will take you back to your dashboard page. Now, again, that first login, the dash wizard will pop up and tell you what certain things are. It's also going to come up under the user page as well as the groups page. Now, up here at the top, right, we have my name where I can click on to get back to that account page. For most of you, to the right of your name, you'll have a Dnd toggle, right? Dnd for Do Not Disturb. That allows you to put your user into Do Not Disturb status, so i.e. you're not taking calls. Now, the reason my user does not have that is because I'm in an ACD queue, right? And ACD queues and the Do Not Disturb feature do not work well together. So once I was added to the queue, that feature was removed from me, at least from the toggle up here at the top. Now to the right, I have the question mark icon, right? Help icon. Now, 3 of these options will always be here. The 4th one is optional, right? So I'll get into that shortly. First up, chat with us. This opens up the chat window at the bottom right of your browser window, allows you to chat with one of our support staff members to help walk you through whatever feature you're setting up. Learn more. This will open up a new tab and take you to our support pages where you can see guides related to how to set up various features. The guides will include screenshots, and some of them actually also have videos. Then we have over here the online store. This opens up a new tab, takes you to store.virtualpbx.com, and this is where you would order things like a VoIP phone or a router, etc. Now the 4th one, the optional one, that's the web phone link, right? So this opens a new tab. It takes you to webphone.virtualpbx.net. The web phone allows you to use Chrome or Firefox on a computer. You have to log in, just uses your dash login, but then you can use that browser to make and receive calls, right, over your internet connection. This means to have that as an option up here, you have to add the web phone as a device to your user first. Then on subsequent logins, it will show up here as the link. This link will show up. All right, here we have the hamburger icon or the menu icon. This is available to all users, right? Now, your standard users will probably only have access to the user portal. As an admin, you have access to these other dash features, right? We'll primarily be in the dashboard for the vast majority of this training, but we will touch on some of these other features as we go through. Some of them, like the dynamic caller ID, they're a plan-specific feature, meaning you may need to upgrade your plan to get the feature. And I'll try to make sure to highlight those as we go through. Here in the middle, total user, etc. This shows a snapshot of your system. Right, so total users 24. That means I have 24 people on my account who make and receive calls. Right, I'm going to be billed, depending on your plan, you're most likely going to be billed for each of the users. So something to be aware of. I have a total of 41 devices on my account. I may or may not be being billed for these. That's for specifics of billing kinds of questions, you probably want to talk to our account services in terms of what you're being billed for and what are overages. Anyway, first of the breakdown here, soft phone, software application that uses your internet connection to make and receive calls. Right? That's all a soft phone is. So it's its own standalone app. This could be the VirtualPBX soft phone app that we have available for Windows, Mac, iOS, and Android. This could be someone else's soft phone application, right? So Xlite from Counterpath, among many, many others that are out there in the world. Web phone, again, using that Chrome or Firefox on a computer. It is technically a kind of soft phone, but it was developed later. Right, cell phone. Most of us know what a cell phone is. And then SIP phone. This is a physical VoIP phone, right? Piece of hardware, right? Sits on your desk. Typically plugs in both via power and Ethernet to get out to your internet connection. You can pick it up, make a call. Now, when you're looking for VoIP phones, right, you want to make sure that when you're shopping, you're looking for a SIP compatible or compliant phone, because that will at least have a chance to work with us. When we get to the auto provisioning phones, those are probably the ones you want to look for in terms of specific models, as they'll be the easiest to add to the system. Unregistered devices, this is actually in relation to my SIP phones. It's saying that 2 of them are offline, unregistered. Basically means we can't send a call to it. We don't know why, right? This could be simply, someone hasn't plugged in their phone yet, like they just moved offices. All right, that would be a valid reason why a phone would be unregistered. Could be they're having their ISP could be having an issue of some sort. Could be a router setting problem. All right, next up we have total numbers. I have 35 phone numbers on my account. Every account has a certain allotment of phone numbers as part of your monthly plan price. If you go over that allotment, you're going to be charged on a per number basis per month. If you just signed up, I would say just check the pricing page. That's going to tell you how many phone numbers are included and what the overage is when you have extra phone numbers. If you have an older plan, you'd want to talk to our account services team. And then we have 2 breakdowns, assigned numbers and spare numbers. Assigned number is a number you're using, right? Someone can call the number and get to, speak to someone, leave a voicemail, send a fax, or join a conference. Spare number, it's on your account, so it counts towards your allotment. You're not currently using it. For instance, you're about to expand to a new city, which has a different area code than you primarily have been in. You added the number ahead of time, so that way you can prepare the various marketing materials, and then before you add the number as a live number on the account. Now here I have the next breakdown, US DID and US toll-free. US toll-free is US Canada toll-free, right? 800 number, 888 all the way down currently to 833. US DID, that just means a US local phone number, right? So you have a number in New York, New York. You have a phone number in Dallas, Texas, right? They both would show up under or count under the US DID. You can have international phone numbers if you are so inclined. You will need to email our porting team. That's PORTING at virtualpbx.com. And they will need to know the city and country that you're interested in getting a phone number in. They will let you know if it's first possible, and then what, if any, additional requirements are needed, right? Those requirements come from the country in question. Conference bridges. This means I have enabled the ability to host or moderate a conference on 4 of my users. Now, I'm not able to activate that feature until I have a conference number added, which I already have. But over here to the right, we have my main numbers. So these 3 phone numbers, they all act or behave in the same fashion, right? So all the calls go to the same initial location. They all have the same main greeting. And you can obviously have multiple main numbers. Conference number, right? You can have multiple conference room numbers if you want, but this is the phone number everyone dials to get to your conference rooms, right? Whether they're your staff members, your clients, your vendors, they all dial this number, and then they'll be prompted to enter the conference room number and PIN number. The fax box number, this is your inbound fax number. You can have the one number, main fax box number, but this would be the number anyone dials who wants to send you a fax. The company directory, this will download a CSV file to your device. It will have your users' names, their extension numbers, and their devices. So if you like a printout of that sort of thing. The soft phone directory, this is for use with the VirtualPBX desktop soft phone application, so Windows and Mac OS. You would download this file and then upload it to your desktop soft phone from VirtualPBX. And this will allow you to see the status of the other soft phones on your account. Now, it's only good with other VirtualPBX soft phones, right? So we're not going to be able to see the status if your colleague has a Yealink phone. That the soft phone directory won't show the status of that Yealink phone. Store discount code, just for being a Dash customer, you get a discount code for use in our online store. That's store.virtualpbx.com. And then we have the account realm. This is used in a couple things. If you're going to use a third-party soft phone, right, so Xlite from Counterpath, this is one of the 3 pieces of information you would need to get that soft phone up and working. The other thing it's used for is to send a fax out. Now, for Dash, to send a fax out, you actually don't need to log into your Dash account. You just need to use your email address that we have set up for your username. Right? Whatever email address you use to log in with. Log into that email, create an email like you normally do, right? You're going to email Cousin Bob. In the to field, instead of Cousin Bob's email address, you put the plus sign, the number 1, the area code and phone number you are faxing to, little @ symbol, and then your account realm. After that, you just need to attach a PDF or a TIFF file and click send, right? So the system looks at the to field, the from field, and the attachment, right? Anything you type in the subject line or in the body of the email will not get transmitted, and the system only will send one attachment. So if you have multiple attachments, only one of them will be attempted to be faxed out. So make life easier on yourself, just have only one attachment. Make sure you remove any kind of signature file attachments as well. All right, up here at the top, you have caller ID. Right? This is your company caller ID. This allows you to select one of your main numbers. The pull down doesn't work quite right on this streaming software, but you can select any of your main numbers. The company caller ID name here, this is optional. This allows you to enter up to 15 characters, including spaces and special characters here in this box to the right, and that will then be transmitted as part of your outbound caller ID. Now, the company emergency information, or E911, the system wants a North American address here. This is required once you open this up. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, once you click on Save Changes, if you inputted information here for the company caller ID, that gets transmitted to the other carriers who support this feature. It will take them approximately 3 business days to get this updated. Once that happens, by default, right, any of the VoIP phones on your account will use this phone number and this caller ID name that will be transmitted as part of the outbound caller ID. However, that's as far as we can control it, right? The other end of the side of the call, right, so the person you're calling, their carrier and their device have control what shows up on their device, right? So that means you should know not every carrier in the world supports CNAME, right? So if your call happens to route through one of them, your CNAME information does not go through. Probably the most problematic thing, however, is when you're calling a cell phone. The cell phone carriers have ultimate control over what shows up on the cell phones on their network. They're the ones who put things like spam risk or telemarketer. And they don't often transmit CNAME information. Like my carrier, for example, when I looked into this, they wanted to charge me an extra $10 a month so that my cell phone will show company caller ID name information for every call that comes through. I didn't feel that was a worthwhile investment of my money, so I chose not to do that. So some calls come in, they may have the caller ID information, most calls don't. Hold music. So on Dash, you can upload your own hold music or media files. Right? And for here, this would be the default hold music for your staff members. So when a call reaches your users, right, they pick up their VoIP phone and they press hold on that VoIP phone, this is the file that will play. Now you can click upload here, upload your own hold music. The system will play back .mp3 and .wav files. You want to make sure that they're recorded in mono, not in stereo, and that they're under 1 megabyte in size. Then you would click the up arrow icon here, and then click on Save Changes once it finishes uploading. Now ours is part of main number, so we'll go ahead and just click on main number and work our way down. The main number page can take a little bit to load. So up here at the top, your main company numbers. Again, these numbers act the same way. These are your default numbers that your customers call. right? They don't have someone's direct number, for example. Now, you have two options down here at the bottom. You can either add from spare or by numbers, right? By numbers just means you're adding a new number to your account, right? Your account has a certain allotment of phone numbers. So if you're under that allotment and you click on by numbers, you're not charged at all, right? It would just add one to your account and count it towards your allotment. Add from spare is where you're basically reusing a phone number on your account. So these 4 phone numbers here, right? I'm not currently using them. So I could choose to add one here, click add selected, and now I've just assigned that 669 phone number as one of my main numbers, right? So I'm reusing it. If instead I want to add a new number, I have a choice here of local and toll-free. Toll-free, you need to choose the toll-free prefix you want to work with, and then you click on search. This will then bring up a list of numbers that are currently available. Now, bear in mind, this is what's referred to as a dynamic list, meaning you're actually competing with people in real time. So I strongly encourage that if you're going to be buying numbers, that you complete the process all the way through and that you don't stop halfway through. All right, so for instance, you just find the number, or you can add multiple numbers that you wish to add. You see you have one in the cart. You also have the number here, as well as an option to remove it from the cart. And then you want to click on Buy Numbers. Now, at this point, the system verifying that number was truly available, and then adding it to the account. If I had selected the number into my cart, but then let's say I walked away and went to lunch, right? And then I come back from lunch, then I clicked on Buy Numbers. It's possible that someone else may have taken that number, right, completed the whole process while I was at lunch. All right, for local numbers, similar process, but you need to know the area code that you want to work with. Right? You type in that area code and click on search. Now, for the toll-free numbers as well as local numbers, this message can come up saying that the area code in question is exhausted. Right? There's no readily available phone numbers that we can get for you. Now, if you have to have a phone number in this particular area code, you can send a request to our porting team and they can do what's called a back order. And all that means is we're waiting for someone to give up a 310 area code phone number, and then we attempt to get that number for you. We have no control of when that's going to happen, so we cannot give you an ETA of any sort. Now, especially for local area numbers, there are what's called overlay area codes. So you may need to Google this. I usually do. Right? So for 310, I know that the overlay is 424. This is Southern California, near LA. And you can see here, I have many 424 phone numbers available. Again, similar process. Click add, by numbers, and now the system is adding it to my account. So for those big metropolitan areas, it may be worthwhile looking at nearby area codes to see if that something is available. So now I have 6 main numbers instead of my 3 that I started with earlier. You have a little gear icon here on the right next to each number. Here is where you can set up the caller ID, right? So you can set up CNAM for each number. You can turn on the ability to accept inbound caller ID name, right? So that way that people's names would show up on your staff members' phones. E911, you can set up the E911 address for each phone number, right? So each phone number can have a different address. This is important because this will allow you to set up different E911 phone number caller ID for your VoIP devices, right? So if you have people working remotely, you can have different addresses set up for each of the phone numbers so that from that specific VoIP phone, if they dial 911, the properly associated address will be sent to emergency services. And prepend, this is a VoIP feature or VoIP phone feature. This allows you to put text in front of the caller ID that shows up on your staff members' VoIP phones. Right, so I could do big promo, click Save Changes. And then now when anyone calls this this specific toll-free number, on my staff members' VoIP phones, they'll see the words big promo and then the phone number of the person who's calling in. So now it gives my staff members a heads up about what the call should be about or why that person's calling. Now, if I decide I don't actually want to use these numbers as my main number or even possibly get rid of them from my account, you first need to unassign a number. Right? So now I have 5 numbers. Now, that number I just unassigned, that 424 number, it's not removed from my account yet. Right? It's now a spare number. But once I get to the numbers tab a little bit later in this training, we'll cover how to delete a number from the account completely. But as a spare number, right, this allows me to reuse it someplace else. Right? Either I can add it to a user or a group, etc. All right, so once you have numbers in place, now you have the option for office hours strategy. You have 24-hour open office, right? That just means you're open 24/7. Right, custom office hours, on the other hand, this allows you to choose when you're open, when you're closed, etc. For each day of the week that you're open, put a check mark in front of that day. And then here in these pull downs to the right, select your open hours in 24-hour or military time. And then you would click on Save Changes. Now, down here at the bottom, which you should be able to see on YouTube, you have an option to say, hey, close my system during lunch. Right? Basically, everyone goes to lunch at the same time. You just put a check mark there if you're going to do that, and then set your lunch hours again in that 24-hour or military time. Right, next up, we have office holidays. First up, are you closed for holidays? If you are, click on the check box on the box to put a check mark. Oops. Then here to the right, you have the option here to add holiday, single day, date range, and advanced. Each one of these will create a new row. Right? You just need to give a name to the row. So New Year's Day, and then choose the month and the date. Click on Save Changes. Right? Date range, again, you give it a name, start date, end date, Save Changes. Now, there's no year indicator here, so as a precaution, we do recommend to not have a date range that includes New Year's Eve and New Year's Day. You can have a date range end on New Year's Eve and then a new one start on New Year's Day. That should be fine. But that's, again, it's just precautionary. Advanced is like I have here for Thanksgiving. Give it a name, choose the month. Now this middle pull down, you have 1st through 5th as well as last, and then the day of the week, right? And then you would click on Save Changes. If you don't need to reuse a holiday the next year, so let's say this October holiday, I don't need it going forward, I can just click on the little trash can icon here, confirm the deletion, and then click on Save Changes. All right. Then we have our incoming call handling. So this is for in relation to my main numbers. How do I want the system to handle calls under my open hours? Now I have an after hours tab and a holidays tab. Now, 3 of these options will be here for everybody, right? This 4th option comes up under special cases. But let's start here. So open hours, a call comes in, goes to my virtual receptionist. This is a link, right? So you can click on that. It's going to bring up a big old box. On my left here, I have my main menu, right? These are where I can set up menu options, right? People press 1 for something, 2 for something, etc. And then where those button presses go. Right down here, add route. If I click on that, creates a new row. Now from the pull down, first pull down, I have 0 through 9, as well as the star key and the default action. And then the second pull down is where you want it to go. So you would need to have like any users or groups, etc., already created, so you have destinations for everything. But if you click on this, Smart PBX directory, right, the dial by name directory, user directory, Users are specific people, right? So press 1 to speak to Bob, that sort of thing. We'll scroll down. We have call queues. These are ACD queues if you have them on your account. ACD queues are an upgrade feature. Generally speaking, to call multiple people with advanced routing strategies. Groups are similar to queues, but they have simpler routing strategies. They're also included, right? There's no additional fee for them. But again, it's designed to call multiple people. Devices, this means you want a menu option to go to a specific phone. Not always recommended, because if the phone doesn't have its own built-in answering machine or voicemail, then you're relying on the caller to either be patient and wait for someone to pick up, or they'll just hang up once they get tired of it. Voicemail boxes, right? Press an option to leave a voicemail. You can have it go to a media file. This would be if you want a menu option to play like hours of operation or directions. Once the media file stops playing, then the call is ended though. And then advanced call flows, this would be if you have multiple auto attendants and you're basically using those auto attendants for submenuing, right? 1 for English, 2 for Spanish. You would then create an English and Spanish auto attendant, which would each have their own greetings, and they each would have their own menu options beneath your main options that you set up here. Over here to the right, we have your greeting options, right? And greetings is what you use to say thank you for calling, as well as give directions to your inbound caller on how to navigate through your phone system. First up, we have text-to-speech. This allows you to type in a greeting, right? You would click Update, Save, and Save Changes. The system then takes that text and creates a greeting based off that using a computerized robotic voice. You can enter up to 250 characters, not words, characters. It does not count spaces from my experience. You can sometimes go over that 250 character limit, but 250 has worked consistently. One thing to know is you don't have an option to save the file name, right? So the system will create the file name for you. And in this case, it'll be main, right? Open hours, menu, TTS. Now, let's say you created one of these, you called in and you're like, oh, I forgot menu option 7, right? You can come back in here and edit the text, right? Click Update, Save, and Save Changes. However, the system saves a new version of the file. So now you have 2 files called main, open hours, menu, TTS. And that means from any of the pull down options for greetings, you're not going to be able to tell which one is which. So the recommendation, when you make a text-to-speech greeting, especially if you're just starting out or you're not sure how you're going to want things to route, create the greeting like normal, right? Type it in, update, save changes. On the left, click on the greetings tab over here, little person with a voice. Find that main open hours menu TTS file and rename it. Like worst case, like main greeting 1, just so you know, oh, it's the first one I created. You can upload your own main greeting file, right? .wav, .mp3, recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. Right? You can choose a file name here, so how it would show up on your Dash account. Click on Choose File to find it on your system or your device. And then click Update, Save, and Save Changes. The system will upload it and use that file. Choose from existing recordings. Now, this pull down will show all of your different media files. Right? You see I have a main open hours menu TTS already listed there. But it can also display hold music files or a voicemail greeting. So when it comes to naming files, either under the greetings tab or any place where you can choose the name, make sure it's something you can easily identify, or at least differentiate from the other media files. All right, record it over the phone. Now, when it says pick up a phone registered to this account, that means a VoIP phone on the account. If you want to use a cell phone or landline to change your main greeting, then under settings, right here, allow outside recording, turn that on. Right. By default, it's off as a security feature, so that way some random person can't try to change your main greeting on you. So when you're done, we do recommend you turn it back to off. Now, if you just signed up with us, if you called your main number right off the bat, you would get a message saying the greeting for this menu has not been set up yet. It will then prompt you for the PIN number, right, which is right here. Now, this PIN number is specific to this time of day, meaning this one only works during my open hours, right? So my system is set up for 9 to 5. If I called in at 7 p.m., this PIN number would no longer work, right? Because I'm in my after hours mode. So I'd have to use the after hours PIN to change the after hours PIN, after hours greeting. Now, in terms of when you call in, all right, I should back that up. If you have a greeting in place, so let's say you started off with a text-to-speech greeting, right? And then you got some feedback from your customer saying it was a little odd, or at first they weren't sure it was your business because they were used to hearing your voice. So you're saying, okay, let me call in and record it over the phone so it's more comforting for my customers. So when you call in, right, you'll hear that text-to-speech greeting. You can still enter in this PIN number during your open hours, and the system will still walk you through recording a greeting over the phone. When it does that, it doesn't give you the opportunity to give it a name, right? It just, in that case, where you already have a greeting file in place, it's just going to reuse the file name, right? So if you left it as main open hours menu TTS, and you called in over the phone, the file name will still be main open hours menu TTS, even though now it's recording instead of text-to-speech. That comes into play typically around holiday time, where sometimes people are getting a rush to change their greeting to reflect holiday hours, and then they lose their normal main greeting that they use for most of the year. Also, if again, it's a new system, right, and you haven't had a greeting in place, if you call in and record it over the phone, the system creates a file name for you. It basically, I believe it just uses your account number and .mp3 or something like that. Okay, professional recording services. When you click order, this opens a new tab, takes you to Snap Recordings. You have like 100 voice actors and actresses to choose from, various versions of English, Spanish, and French. They have their own billing, right? So you basically pay them via credit card. They send you the file, and then you just upload your own file. All right, settings. So first up, we have the number of retries on misdial. This is how many times your inbound caller can make a mistake. The dialing timeout is how long the system listens for additional button presses. So person calls in, they hear the main greeting, and let's say they press 7 on their phone. Right? That's not a main menu option. I don't have an extension number 7. Now, after the system hears that 7 button press, it waits for 5 seconds. Like, are you adding any more digits because you're going to enter an extension number? After that 5 seconds elapses, then it says, okay, not a menu option, not an extension. It says, oh, but they get 1 retry. Main greeting plays again. Now the inbound caller, let's say they press 7 again, right? For whatever reasons, system still waits 5 seconds. Says, okay, again, not a menu option, not an extension. And in this scenario, it would go to my default action. In this case, sending the call to my smart PBX directory. If I click the X here and remove the directory option on that second attempt, right, then that's incorrect. The system would then end the call and tell the caller we did not recognize your entry, and then says goodbye. All right, allow outside recording. We just covered that under recorded over the phone. Allow dialing to extensions. By default, this is on, meaning that if the inbound caller knows the extension number and enters it in, the system will transfer the call to the extension. If you turn that off, that means when your inbound caller calls in, they can only press these menu options. Enter an extension number just returns an invalid entry message and counts as a retry or a failed attempt. And then here, suppress the playing of invalid entry. If you don't want the system to play that message saying we did not recognize your entry, you could turn this on, and now that message will no longer play. Any changes you make to the main menu, your greetings or your settings, you need to click save here in this big box, right? Once it disappears, you're back under incoming call handling. You need to click save changes here as well, right? So you're clicking save twice. Now this second option is referred to as the live operator answer option, right? This essentially is designed to allow you to give a staff member or multiple staff members an opportunity to answer the call first before it sends the caller to the virtual receptionist. So this is a pull down. You're most likely going to select a specific user. So like in this case, the system would offer the calls to Aaron. I can scroll down. I can set it to a queue, but the next most common probably is groups, right? So this would go to, say, 5 people. If they're not able to answer it, then it goes to my virtual receptionist. Now, right now, I'm still under my main hours or main open hours. So it's that same auto attendant we were just looking at. If I switch this over to after hours, all right, and here we'll go to this. We'll just save changes real quick. So now I'm offering it to this group, but if I click on the virtual receptionist, oops, right, after hours, virtual receptionist, now you see I have different menu options. I should have a different greeting playing, and I could have even different settings here. Now the third option, again, you can choose to go to the directory. I don't know why, but typically we see it either offered to users, queues, groups, actually is very common, sometimes a specific device, and also sometimes a media file. All right. And then after 20 seconds, and that's hard-coded, we can't change that, then the system will send the call to the voicemail box you specify. Now, under this first pull down, you also have one very last option here, which is a send the caller straight to voicemail, which makes sense if for holidays for some businesses like, hey, we're not even open, just everyone go straight to voicemail. We'll handle it after the holiday. This fourth option, this shows up again if our services team had a advanced call flow or specialized call flow set up for you. So you had some sort of custom work done, or if you have multiple auto attendants on your account and you set up or you'll enabled any of those auto attendants to show up under main menu, they would be available here. So basically you're just sending calls to an alternate routing option. All right, next up we have the main conference number. Right, you can have multiple conference numbers, but they all go to the same set of conference rooms. And then you also have the option here to set up a custom greeting. However, it's a text-to-speech greeting, right? 250 characters, including space or not including spaces. Just again, characters, not words. Even if you choose to leave this as disabled, when you call your conference number, the system will come on and say, "Welcome to the conference," and then prompt the inbound caller to enter the conference room number and then the PIN number. And then once you've added a conference room number here, you can enable the conference bridge feature for your users. The main fax box number, you can have only the one, which is why I know I don't have the option here to add from spare or buy new. Then you would click on Edit Fax Box, and you have 2 fields. The first one is for the inbound notification email address, right? So you put in the email address. Anytime a fax comes in, the system sends an email to this email address saying, here's the date, the time, phone numbers involved. Here's the fax as a PDF attachment, right? So then you just double click and view the fax. Now, if someone dials your fax number, say from their cell phone, right? They hear fax tones, most people hang up fairly quickly. The system will still be generating an email saying there was a failed inbound fax attempt. So if it's a number you don't recognize, right? You can also check this in the call log to see how long that call was. Basically, on average, to fax a page, it takes between 30 to 45 seconds. So anything below that, it's probably a hang up. Now, if it's a number you recognize or that you were expecting a fax from, you'd want to call that person to see if their fax machine returned any kind of specific error message. The email permissions, this is for outbound faxing permissions. It's designed for you to put in your company's email domain, as we have shown here. And this means anyone at your company who has an email that ends in that domain, they can send a fax out on the system, even if they're not a Dash user, right? They just have the right email domain and the right format, they can send a fax out. All right, next up we have auto attendance. This is a plan-specific feature, right? So it's available on some plans, not on others. There are a couple primary use cases that we've encountered. The first is that submenuing that I've mentioned, right? So you can have for different languages is the usual example, right? One for English, two for Spanish. The other would be if you own multiple small businesses, right? So each business has its own main greeting and its own phone numbers, right? But you have the same staff members answering calls for these multiple businesses. Up here at the top, that's where you would create a new auto attendant. You give it a name and an extension number. You can always change. This is just a suggestion for the extension number. You can change that at any time. And then you click on Create Attendant. Once an attendant is created, if you click on its name, by default, it starts them off as unavailable in main menu, meaning it's a standalone attendant, separate business. You can click on this to flip it to say available in main menu, meaning now it's a sub-menu option. And then you would click on Save Changes. So for instance, click on Spanish, you'll see it's available in main menu. Then you have a phone numbers box. So you can add from spare numbers, you can buy new numbers. You have a little gear icon here to update the caller ID and E911, etc. Your attendants can have multiple phone numbers if you want them to. Here's the extension box. You can give multiple extension numbers to an auto attendant. If you're going to swap out an extension number, I would advise adding the new extension number first, right? Then clicking Save Changes, clicking on the box, and then unassigning the original extension number, and then Save Changes. That applies for users and groups as well. And then we have the little wrench icon here under Settings. Here you see open hours, after hours, and holidays, right? So these times or dates for the case of holidays match what we already set up under main number, right? So your secondary attendants have to have the same hours of operation as your primary account. If for some reason you have, like say you have separate businesses and one is 24/7, the other is Monday to Friday, 9 to 5, you'd want to talk to our account services team. So there is the option that we can have custom work done to have both businesses on the same account. But depending on how you're going to use, basically what your use case is, it might make more sense to have different accounts. So they can discuss with you the best options for you. But again, you would just click on the virtual receptionist here, set up your menu options, your greeting options, and your settings, and then click Save and Save Changes. Next, we have devices, right? So these are the devices on your account. Red means it's unregistered, right? So in the case of a soft phone, that could simply be that they haven't logged into it yet. All right. Black means you've turned it off on the system, right? So it's currently disabled, which if you flip it, it will either turn red or green. And then green down here towards the bottom, this means it's registered, meaning the system can send a call to it. Up here at the top, you have your options to add devices. You have these. We'll start with SIP phone here. The SIP phone, again, that physical device sits on someone's desk. You have these manufacturers to choose from, right? Some have a lot of models to pick from, some only a few. But you find the make and model of the phone you want to work with. And then down here, you need to give it a name. Phone 1, Bob's phone, break room phone, that sort of thing. And then the MAC address. That's unique to each device. Typically, it's a sticker on the back of the device or the bottom. Or if it's plugged in, usually under its basic settings or status, there should be something listed under MAC, M-A-C. And you would enter that information here, click on Create Device. Within our dashboard, the only other thing you would do or need to do would be to assign it to a specific user. However, for the phone, you need to access the phone's web user interface, the web UI, and enter in a specific URL, basically telling the phone, hey, go here to get your config file. For the specifics of that, you want to go to our support pages, do a search for auto provisioning phones. That document will have the screenshots for these various manufacturers, so telling you where exactly to go, as well as the proper syntax for that URL, and in some cases, some additional settings just to verify. Cell phone and landline are the same, assuming I can highlight it here. You would give it a name, and then you enter the number, right? +1 area code and phone number. Click on Create Device. And we'll go down here to this demo device here. So here we see the name and then the format, right? +1 area code and phone number. If we go to advanced options, this is the default settings for both a cell phone or a landline. Now, in terms of how the system deals with cell phones or landlines, call comes in, we reach out to this device, right? So your cell phone rings, and when you pick up, you're going to hear a message saying, this is a forwarded call. Please press 1. When you press 1, you're telling the system, yes, you're there. Yes, you want to take this call, right? It then connects the person to you. You begin speaking. However, let's say you added a phone number to an automated answering service that you want to use for your after-hours calls. That automated answering service doesn't know when to press 1. Which means when we try to send the call to it, they don't press 1. So on our side, it looks like the other end, right, the answering service refused the call, right, rejected or no answer. Right, their side is saying, hey, we weren't able to take the call. So what you would want to do is for that number, come here, and where it says allow use of cell phone's voicemail, click on the box in front of it to put a check mark. So now, when we send that call to this phone number, that's your automated answering service, when we hear that pickup tone, we connect the call. Right, so then your automated answering service can answer the call and handle it for you. Now, if this is really your cell phone number and you have this checked, if your cell phone voicemail picks up, right, it's still a pickup tone. So your inbound caller can end up on your personal cell phone's voicemail box. Some people want it, some people don't. The other thing that can come up is also this one here, keep original caller ID. So by default, customary calls into your system, goes out to your cell phone. On your cell phone's display, you'll see customer Mary's phone number. Say you don't recognize it and you're tired of getting calls about extending your auto warranty or any political calls that you might be getting. So you let it go to voicemail. Maybe you're not able to sync up with customer Mary. Maybe she moved on to a different competitor. So if you uncheck this, now when customer Mary or anyone calls into your system, instead of seeing their phone number show up on your cell phone, you would see your main company number. And what I mean by that is this number that you selected up here under the company caller ID, right? That's the number that shows up on your cell phone or landline. Right, soft phone, software application, right? A little warning message about wireless VoIP technology. Now on this page, right, the devices page, when you add a soft phone, you can only add a third-party soft phone. So if you want to make use of the VirtualPBX soft phone app, you need to add the soft phone directly to the user, not here on the devices page. But if you want to use someone else's soft phone app, that's fine. You copy and paste the SIP username, click on the SIP password box to see the SIP password, copy and paste that, do not change it, and then copy and paste the realm. Those are the 3 pieces of information you would need to set up a third-party soft phone. Click on Create Device, and then you would need to assign it to a user. Also, for your devices, you've got this option here for the wrench under Settings. Oh, wait, that's a web phone. So if we go to soft phones, for example, audio, if you're using a software phone, right, typically you want to have the Opus codec, and that's the default for the VirtualPBX soft phone. Now, if this soft phone was actually for a third-party like piece of hardware, right, so you use the credentials to program a device that wasn't showing up under the SIP phone list, then you'd want to make sure that G711A and G711U, these 2 at the top, are over here on the right under Selected. And then click on Save Changes. Here, the emergency caller ID, right? This allows you to choose the different phone numbers on your account that have addresses that will then be used for their E911 purposes. Right, on the left here, Greetings Manager shows all your media files, right? All your main greetings, your voicemail greetings, your hold music files. Up here at the top, you can add a new greeting, right? So you're uploading a file. You give it a name, click on Browse, find the MP3 or .wav file on your system, click on Create Greeting, and it will upload it here. Now, when it's here, when you upload it like that, you're not assigning it anywhere. It's available to choose from the existing media files. Here, right, you can see the file name and then the source, right? TTS, text to speech. Upload means you uploaded the file. Recording means it was recorded over the phone. Relatively new feature here, you can click on the little play button here so you can listen to the greetings right here in your browser. Now, if for some reason that doesn't work, you can download the file to your device and listen to it on your device. Then we've got the little wrench icon here under Edit. This is where you can change the name, or you can simply remove the file because it's no longer relevant. Groups, sometimes referred to as hunt groups or ring groups. Basically departments. Up here at the top, you click on Add Group. You give it a name and an extension number. And then you click and drag your staff members that you want to be in the group. And then click on Create Group. Once the group is created, you can click on the name here. Right? So you can always change the name. And then you also have this group call attempts. This is how many times the system will offer calls to the members of the group. Got little arrows here to the right so you can increase or decrease that as needed. And then click on Save Changes. The box here to the right, the members group, if you click on that, this allows you to adjust how the system offers the calls to your group members. So this setup right here is what's referred to as blast ringing or ring all, right? So it's ringing everybody at the same time for the same amount of time until someone picks up. Now, along here at the top, you've got timestamps, right? This last box you can edit. The default that system starts off with for groups is 120 seconds, right? 2 minutes. You can change that. And you also have this big distribute button. And if you click on that, now calls will always come in, calls that come into the group always ring in the same order, right? So Bob first, then Aaron, Peter, Michael, David. Now, if I want to change the order, I need to click on these people's names and click it and drag them up or down. and all around. Now, I haven't adjusted the timestamps yet, right? So Bob is still first. But once I click distribute, now David's first, right? Bob's last. These are sliders, so I can click and drag, so I can adjust it, right? So that I have some overlap between callers. If I so choose. Down here at the bottom left, this is where you would add additional people, right? You would just click this and click on the box to add them to the group. And then you would click distribute again, right? So they have equal time. And then here is on the right is where you would remove a user. Any changes that you want to keep, you just click on Save Changes. Here we've got the extension number for the group. Again, you can add extension numbers and use that to swap out extension numbers. Groups can have their own phone numbers, right? You can either add from spare or buy new. Now, a phone number on a group, it's not a main number. It's not an auto attendant number, which means it does not have hours of operation or holidays. So a number on a group or even on a user, someone can call that number 24/7 and it's going to ring the staff members in the group. That's kind of important if you have any staff members using their personal cell phones. Then we've got group features. So Ringback, if you enable this, so I guess I should explain. When a call comes into a group, right, gets offered to your staff members and then rings their phones, right? When that ringing sound occurs, that ringing sound is played back or sent back to the inbound caller. So that's what they hear by default, right? The ringback sound coming back to them. If instead you want a media file to play instead of that ringing sound, you can enable this feature, right? Upload a .wav or .mp3 or choose an existing file from the pull down and click on Save Changes. So now whenever that ringing sound is coming back from your staff members to your inbound caller, the media file plays instead. One thing to know about groups, right? Your staff members can use cell phones, landlines, or VoIP phones. ACD queues, you can use cell phones and landlines now, although originally you could only use VoIP phones. I haven't tested myself with cell phones, so I don't know if there's any issues with cell phones other than the fact that when we send a call to a cell phone or a landline, right, that's the endpoint of the call, right? Your staff member is not going to be able to transfer that call from their cell phone number or from their landline phone number. Whereas for the VoIP phone, right, you'll be able to transfer calls. All right, next action, to me, this is the most important feature. When you enable this, if none of your group members answer the call, right, so after however many group call attempts you have, what do you want the system to do with the call? You each have this pull down. You can send it to a voicemail box, a different ring group, an ACD queue. You can send it back to your main menu, to a specific user, etc. And then click on Save Changes. Allow call forwarding. If you enable this, that means you're allowing your staff members to make use of call forwarding. So that way, if they're not at their normal desk phone or house phone, right, they can make use of call forwarding to send it to, say, their cell phone. And then caller ID prepend. This is for your VoIP phone users. You can add either additional text or numbers in front of the caller ID that shows up on your VoIP phone's displays. Again, the idea here is to give your staff members a heads up about what the call might be about. Numbers, this will start you off on your numbers in use page and basically showing the status of your numbers, right? They're basically, where are they? Now, you can't unassign a number here. You can't assign a number here. It's just saying, hey, this is where they're at. So then you know where to go to unassign a number, for example. But you can always adjust the caller ID E911 and prepend. Over here under spare numbers, so any of your spare numbers, right, you're not using it, you can choose to get rid of that number. All you have to do is click on the box in front of it, and then up here, the option to delete has appeared. It says, are you sure? You click on delete numbers, and now that number is removed from your account. Right, so you have to unassign a number first, then come to numbers, spare numbers, and then you can remove the number. Buying numbers here on the spare numbers page just adds a number to your spare number list. Right, port starts the port process, meaning you're moving a phone number from one carrier to VirtualPBX. Right, so say from AT&T to VirtualPBX, you give it a name, you choose if it's a local or toll-free number, and then you need to upload a recent copy of your bill, meaning within 30 business days. You click on the little box here. It's then going to ask you for the phone numbers you're porting, the address, the account number. It asks for the BTN, which is billing telephone number. If you're only porting one phone number, it's typically that one phone number is the BTN. Right? If you have multiple phone numbers, you may need to talk to your existing carrier to find out for sure what the BTN is. You will then have an opportunity to download a blank LOA or letter of agency. You need to complete that form and sign it and then upload it to the system. There's 4 checkboxes. You can select a requested port by date. You just need to make sure you put that in the future. Right? You can't do it the same day you submit the request. That's not something we can control. Right? We can ask, but the other carrier, right, in this case AT&T, they have final say about when they release the number to us. And then there's 4 checkboxes to check, basically saying you're keeping both sides, both accounts open, right? The account with us that you're sending it to and the account that you're porting from. They both need to be open and active. A few other things to acknowledge. You click submit. After you click submit, it will upload the documents. You will get an email from the system saying you've submitted a port request. You should receive a second email from our porting team. That lets you know that an actual person has looked at your documents and the port request. If there's any immediate problems, right, they'll probably also send you a third email saying, hey, this looks wrong, or this information is confusing. We want to make sure we got the right info. In terms of port timing, if everything is correct, toll-free numbers typically take 3 to 5 business days. Local numbers can be anywhere from 1 business day, but they average about 2 to 3 weeks. If there's a rejection, it's not always a specific reason that we're given. Meaning, we'll get a rejection reason for address mismatch, but we're not told if it's a street number or the zip code necessarily. So in that kind of situation, we double check to make sure there wasn't a typo anywhere. In some cases, you might have, say, one address on the LOA, but there's a different address on the copy of the bill. So we'll make sure we try both addresses before we let you know. But if we go through everything, we've tried every particular option, then we say, hey, this is the rejection we're getting. Here's what we tried. At that point, you're going to want to talk to your current carrier to find out the correct information to port. Also, if you are porting multiple numbers, I would strongly recommend you talk to your current carrier first to find out the correct information to port the numbers. In some cases, there might be multiple sub-carriers involved. So you might actually have to do several different requests. Users shows all the users on the account. Little gray person, standard user. Person with the blue suit, system admin, right? Meaning they can do all the things we've been talking about here. At the top, that's where you add a user. First name, last name. All right, pretty easy. The email address used for login. This needs to be unique for each user, i.e. you cannot reuse an email address. This is the email, not only is it used to log in, it's also the default email the system uses to send or communicate with the user, right? i.e. Voicemail notifications are sent to this email address, password resets, that sort of thing. Password, you create the password for the user. The main extension number, you can type in the extension numbers you want to use. Right, this system started with extension 1000, so it's saying the next available is 1024. Now, by default, the system will automatically create a voicemail box for the user, and that voicemail box is intrinsically tied to the user. So, for instance, if you created this user added a VoIP phone to the user. The user could pick up that VoIP phone, dial *98, and that's the feature code to log in directly to their voicemail box. That first time they do that, the system will prompt them to record a PIN number, as well as to then record their voicemail box greeting. Right? So help them get set up right off the bat. Here you've got the option to include in the user directory. You can change this later. Send emails to an alternate address. So if instead you want the voicemail notifications to go to an address that's different than what the person uses to log in to their Dash account, you would put a check mark here and then enter in that different email address. Right? It's going to supersede the email address used for login for everything. And then here, send credentials to the user. I personally think that's important. If you need to only create one user, you just click on Create User. If you have to add multiple, create user and add another. Once a user is created, you can click on their name. Right? You can change their name if you need to, like you accidentally typed in the wrong name. Change credentials. If you change this, click on this. You can change their email address or password. You also have the option here to send them the password reset email to let them log in and change the password to something they'll remember. Change PIN number will change the PIN number of their voicemail box. If for some reason they forgot it, you can go in here quickly and update it. Here's the option to send to an alternate address. Here's the option to change their status in the directory. Over here on the right, this pull down where it says user, this allows you to change a user into an admin or an admin into a user. Next up, we have the time zones, right? So that way the voicemail timestamps are correct for this person. Little flag here, that's to change the display language of these web pages for this person. English, French, German, or Russian. Ringing timeout by default is 20 seconds. Now, Aaron has a feature enabled called Follow Me, so that's why it's grayed out. If we go to, I think, Bob, right, you see here it's 20 seconds. 20 seconds is plenty of time to send a call to a landline or a VoIP phone. To a cell phone, it might be enough time. We don't typically recommend updating that to 30 to 45 seconds. Right? In terms of how it works, basically, right, call comes in, goes to the landline telecom, they go, oh, we know where that is, sends it directly to that device. Whereas call comes into a cell phone telecom, they go, hold on a second, we need to find them first. Ping cell phone towers, find your phone, then send the call through. That delay, in terms of finding the phone, is why you would need a longer ring duration for a cell phone than you would for a landline. Extensions. All right, users can have multiple extensions if you want them to. They can have their own phone numbers if you want them to. Right? You can buy from new, add from spare. They can have multiple phone numbers. And again, just like under groups, right, these phone numbers don't have hours of operation or holidays, so someone can call them 24/7. Here under the devices box, you can add from spare or add new devices, right? Same options as before. Now, for the soft phone option, right, you have this big old box like before, but down here at the bottom, one slight change, it says use third-party application. You can click on that to flip it to say use VirtualPBX application. And it should update. Oh, so I have a warning message. So each email address can only have one VirtualPBX soft phone associated with it. That's why this message comes up. But for most of you, this wouldn't come up. And then it would flip it to say use VirtualPBX application. You give it a name. You click on create device and then save changes. Then that user gets an email with their VirtualPBX soft phone credentials, right? So the soft phone uses different login information than your Dash login page or even the web phone login page. Right. User features. Caller ID number, this only comes up for users that have their own phone number. If you turn it on, you select one of their phone numbers, that phone number becomes their default caller ID whenever they make an outbound call, right? That would supersede your main number that you set up under the dashboard. You don't have to do that, but you can. Virtual text application. This is a new feature. When you turn it on, you select a phone number for the user. That can be a phone number that's assigned directly to the user. It can be your main number. It can be one of your auto attendant numbers. And then you click on Save Changes. They will get an email from the VirtualPBX or Virtual Text app. They'll have new login information. So they could potentially have 3 sets of login information, right? For soft phone, their dash, and the virtual text. VirtualText.app is a website they can go to. They can also download the app directly to their phone. They can then text customers, right, and receive texts. Virtual text also allows you to share phone numbers among your staff members, so like for your main numbers, so that we have multiple people who can respond to texts that are coming from your customers. Voicemail box, this is basically a default setting setup right here. Transcription is technically a account-specific feature, or plan-specific feature, excuse me. And what it does is the system listens to the voicemail message that is left and types it out in the email notification to you. Now, that email notification, no matter what, will have the date, the time, phone numbers involved. It will, and by default, we have the attached messages to email, so there'll be an MP3 file attachment as well. Right? So if you have transcription enabled, the system listens to it to the best of its ability and types it out. If people are not speaking into their microphone properly, or there's a lot of background noise, what have you, then the accuracy of that transcription will suffer. Now, voicemail boxes can hold up to 100 messages before they are full. Once they are full, they cannot hold any more. Now, if your staff member is good about deleting their messages, right, that's not a worry. If they're not, then you may, as an admin, have to go into the voicemail box and delete it. Or you can choose this option here, which is the system will automatically delete the voicemails from the voicemail box after it has sent the email notification out. Now, when you do that, that limits your staff member to only getting their voicemail messages via email, right? So if they ever have a problem with their email, they may lose voicemail messages. If you leave that unchecked, right, then not only can they check via email, but they can call in over the phone, right, listen to their messages from their VoIP phone, for instance, and delete the messages that way. They can also use the user portal to see their voicemail messages and delete the messages there. Right, so a little more versatility. Follow Me is for users with multiple devices. This allows you to set up how you want your devices, or how you want the user's devices to ring. Now, let's disable this real quick. You first have to tell the system which devices to use, right? So when you first enable it, this is what it looks like, saying it's not going to ring any of your devices. You uncheck which devices you want to use, and then you can click and drag the slider. Now up here, right, timestamps, you also have that distribute button, just like in groups. Also, just like in groups, right, you can change the order. So now the soft phone rings first. And then you would click on Save Changes. Fax box, you can choose to have users have their own fax box if you want to. And then you have the option to use a spare number, buy a new number, or assign a different extension number. I recommend against using an extension number because that limits your user to only accepting inbound faxes. If you use a phone number, they can send and receive faxes. And that's partially because the system uses the user fax box information when it sends the fax out. Meaning, if you have a fax box on a user with only an extension number, the system uses that extension number as the outbound caller ID, which is not long enough, which will fail. The other concern is with faxing to an extension number, right? You're relying on the inbound or the person who's sending a fax to you to be able to send it to the extension in the first place, right? Some electronic fax services, right, e-fax services, may not allow you to send faxes to an extension number. Or if they do, they may charge you extra for it, right? At least from an analog fax machine, they have the possibility of, standing over the fax machine and listening to the greeting on speakerphone and then entering the extension number and then hit send fax. Or even on some fax machines, right, they can enter the number and put like comma, comma, or pound, pound to add a pause, and then the number. And then the fax machine will automatically wait, send the extension number, then send the fax. Conference bridge. When you enable it on a user, that means you're saying, hey, they're one of my conference moderators. The main thing you need to set up for them is a PIN number, and then you click on Save Changes. The enable video conferencing, this is only for your Dash users, right? Anyone outside of your organization will not be able to make use of video conferencing. Call forwarding. Call forwarding is something your users can set up themselves. They can do it via the user portal, or they can use it, set it up using their VoIP phones, using feature codes. The only thing that you can set up that they can't is the failover mode. And failover mode is if their VoIP phone becomes unregistered and a call comes to the user at that time. If you have failover mode enabled, right, then the system will automatically forward the call to this phone number that you designate under this field here. +1 area code and phone number, no spaces, no dashes, no parentheses. Customized call recording. When you first enable it, it looks like this, right? Everything is set to off by default. Basically, you need to tell the system what kind of calls you're going to record. So inbound internal, that means a coworker call, right? Coworker Bob called Aaron. If you want to record that, then you can turn that on, right? Inbound external, customer Mary called Aaron. Now, outbound internal means Aaron called coworker Bob. Outbound external means Aaron called customer Mary. And it could be that you don't even care about the internal calls at all, right? You can do that, and then you would save changes. Now, every account includes some amount of storage as part of your monthly plan price. If you just signed up, please check the pricing page. It will have that information there. If you go over, we don't stop recording the calls. We just charge you an overage on a per gigabyte basis. If you have heavy call volume and you're going to record every call, you'd want to talk to our account services team about AWS integration. They can help get that set up for you, so that way you can have your call stored with AWS versus with us, which with heavy call volume is usually more cost effective. Music on hold. You can choose to have your users have their own hold music if you want them to. Just click enable, upload a .mp3 or .wav recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. This would be, for instance, like you want your sales team to have one set of hold music, right? Emphasizing the current promotions versus, say, your tech support staff having a different hold music, talking about going to our support site, or you can email us for support, etc. Do not disturb. Enable that means calls to this user aren't being offered to their phones. They're just going to go to voicemail. Hotdesking is a VoIP feature. You set up the Hotdesk ID. I usually say match it to their extension number, especially if you're making use of 4-digit extensions. You can click Save Changes. You have the option to require a PIN number. But this is for like a shared office environment or hybrid scheduling. So, for instance, it's Tuesday. Aaron comes into the office on Tuesdays. He sits down at desk number 2. He picks up the VoIP phone there, hits *11. That turns on Hotdesking on that phone. And the system will, he enters his Hotdesk ID. The system will then tell him calls will now come to him at this device. Rest of his workday, anyone who's trying to reach his user rings at that phone he's sitting at. The end of the day, picks up the phone, hits *12, turns off Hotdesking. The next time he comes into the office, let's say that's Friday, someone's already sitting at desk number 2. He says good morning to Felicia. He moves on. He sits down at desk number 8. Same thing. Picks up the phone, hits *11, hot desk ID. Now calls are coming to him at desk number 8. All right, voicemail boxes. All right, shows all the voicemail boxes on the account. Any voicemail box that has an entry in this third column here, that means that was a user-created voicemail box, right? It's created at the same time as the user. Up here, you can create your own voicemail boxes for use for like your ring groups or queues if you're making use of queues, or you just want a general a voicemail box that isn't tied to a specific person. You give it a name, you give it a voicemail box number, and then a PIN number. Click on create voicemail box. After that, you can click on the little wrench icon here, right? So you can review this information. So this is like the voicemail box number and PIN number. You would use that to listen to the voicemail messages over the phone, as well as like change the voicemail greeting over the phone. If you go to advanced greeting media, under the media file, you can upload a file, right? This would be the voicemail greeting message. Okay, sorry we missed your call. Please leave a message. One of our staff members will reach back out to you as soon as possible. All right. You can upload a file, .wave.mp3 recorded in mono under 1 megabyte. The temporary file, this is the vacation or out of office message. So if you have something selected in this pull down, it will play even if you have something else selected under media. Right? The media file won't play again until you select the temporary file back to none, and then click Save Changes. All right, next up, recipients. Your user voicemail boxes have a built-in recipient, right? The email address used for login. But if you ever need to add additional recipients, or you need to add or for any voicemail box you create manually on this page, you probably want to add at least one recipient. So you click here, and then you enter the email address. Right? If you only need to add one, then you click on Save Changes. Excuse me. If you need to add multiple, after the first one, you just click on the Add button here. A new row will show up, enter the new email address, and continue until you're done. Then we have options. So once you have a media file in place and recipients in place, you can click this to say it's already set up. Right? The other things to double check is the attached emails to voicemail, or the voicemails to email, and if you want delete after notification enabled or not. And then Save Changes. Advanced routing, this is for direct inward system access, or DISA. Basically, what DISA does is allows you to log into your system over from a cell phone or a landline, and then make an outbound call from your system. So that way, instead of your cell phone number showing up as the outbound caller ID, it's your main company number. Now, this feature is not enabled on new accounts on signup. This is something you'd have to talk to our account services team about. But after that, it would show up here. You would just click Enable. And then by default, the system creates a PIN number for you automatically. Now, if you leave it just like this, then you would need to make DISA a menu option under your virtual receptionist or one of your auto attendants, right? It's one of your advanced call flows. Now, the downside of that is someone may accidentally hit that menu option and the system prompts them for a PIN number. And there's a certain subset of individuals who take that as a challenge and will try to figure it out. If they do so, right, they can then make outbound calls on your account and you won't know about it. So to help with that, I suggest click Edit Settings. Again, you can change the PIN number, but the main thing I would say is click here is add an extension number and make an extension number not part of your normal sequence, right? So this system started with this extension 1000. I would want to make my DISA extension something different. All right, then Save Changes. So now I can call into my system, right? And one of my phone numbers that goes to my virtual receptionist or one of my auto attendant numbers. When I hear that main greeting play, I enter this extension number that only myself and or maybe my staff members would know about. Then I can enter in the PIN number. Once I do that, I'll hear dial tone again. I just enter area code and phone number that I want to reach out to, and I make that call. And again, instead of my cell phone number showing up as a caller ID, it's this number under the dashboard. right under the company, under the caller ID. Once it loads, right? So this phone number would show up as my outbound caller ID instead. All right. Now, one way to know about the outbound calls on your account is the call logs. Right? The call logs show your call history on the account. The green arrow to the right means it's an inbound call. A yellow arrow to the left means it's an outbound call. Although in this case, this is a feature code setup. But here I can click on the call and I can see that Mike used his VoIP phone to make an outbound call. So it's a legitimate call. Right, likewise, I can click on one of the green calls and I can see which device it was offered to. Now, generally speaking, you do want to see normal clearing because that means as far as the system is concerned, the call entered or ended normally. If for some reason you had a problem with a call, you can click on this little fire hydrant icon. It's going to create an email to our support team and it's going to have the technical details already inputted for you. Please type in the body of the email, right? We need the context. What happened? Why are you reporting the call? Now, you can always download these call logs. It downloads it as a CSV file. So if you're good with spreadsheets, you can get a lot more detail out of the call logs. Right, we have some predefined call log timestamps, right? Today, this week, etc. Right, you can download each of them. Custom allows you to set the date range you want to do, and then you can download the file. If you want, or if you need to keep your call log data for compliance reasons, I would suggest you do that every month. The system lets you go back up to 12 months. After that, you'd have to contact our support team. We'd have to create an escalation for our engineers. They can go back an additional 6 months, but after that, the call data is no longer available. Down here, we have feature codes. I've talked about like the Hotdesking ones here. These are just ways for your VoIP phone users to access different dash features directly from the VoIP phones. This information is a web page on our support page, right? It's a web page on our support pages, excuse me. There's also a document called Phone Commands Cheat Sheet, which gives a little bit more context on how to use them. That's the dashboard. So we'll go up here under the menu icon. Next up, we have Blacklists. This is an included feature. This allows you to create a list or lists of phone numbers that you want to block from reaching your system, right? So you click Edit Numbers, or Edit Settings, excuse me. Click Add to create a new list, or you can just click on an existing list. Right? You need to give it a name. And then, are you blocking it anonymous? Right? That means if we're not getting a valid inbound caller ID, the system will block the call. Right? If you turn this off, that means you're letting them through. Beyond that, you come here, click on Add Number, put +1, area code and phone number. Right? No spaces, no dashes, no parentheses, just +1, area code and number. Keep clicking Add until you're done. Once you are done, right, you click Save down here at the bottom right. You go back, click on Back to Settings towards the top right, and make sure your lists are over here under Selected. Right? So these 3 lists, any phone number on them is being blocked. Right? And then you click Update. Faxes, this takes you to your Fax Box Manager. So as an admin, you can get to any of your fax boxes and see the status of them and see if there's any inbound faxes waiting in them. I don't think we have any currently. But if there was, you would see the date, the time, how many pages. You could download the document as well. Outbound faxes, and you can select your various fax boxes. Here, if you see a failure here under the outbound fax tab, that means we had a problem communicating with that phone number. Now, sometimes under this last icon here, you can click on that and it might give you more details. Normally that I've seen, it just says fail. Let's see. Yeah, success false. Now, sometimes you may see things like user busy, which just tells you the line was busy every time we attempted it. You can still download the file, etc., see what's going on. You can go to email to fax logs. If there's anything here, that means we have a problem processing the request. Now, that could be because the email address was incorrect, the format of the sending out was incorrect, or the attachment. You can click on the little eyeball icon here, and you see here a no valid attachment. Now, that could be that there was no attachment at all, or someone tried to send like a JPEG, right? The valid attachments are PDF or TIFF. And we'll see if this is different. Nope. Number Manager, this just takes you to your spare number page. Reports, this opens up a new tab and takes you to reports.virtualpbx.com, which is our advanced reporting. This is a plan-specific feature that lets you set up your own or create your own customized reports. If you go to our YouTube channel under videos, or you can do a search for advanced reports demo, and you can see some of the things that you can do. If you're interested in this, you definitely would want to talk to our account services team to make sure if you need to change plans or not, or if not, to make sure it's enabled on the account. The voicemails, this takes you to your voicemail box manager. So you can get to any voicemail box on the account. You can see any messages that are there, right? So if this had 100 messages, I would see them all, right? And then here, you can change the status. Or since I'm an admin, I can also move the message to a different voicemail box, right? It's with the wrong person. I see the date and the time, phone numbers involved. I see how long the message is. I can play it back. I can download it. ACD queues. ACD stands for Automatic Call Distribution. It's basically a call center feature. There are two kinds of queues available. There are standard queues, which is what we see here, and there's ACD queues Pro. Now, an account can only have one or the other. They cannot have both simultaneously, so I can only show you the one. However, under our YouTube channel, under videos, you can look for the ACD queues Pro demo. That will show you the major differences between the two. I'm going to click here over here is where you would add a queue. I'm just going to click here under the gear icon of an existing queue. So you need to give the queue a name. And then a queue can have either a direct phone number or an extension number. Cannot have both. Then you have the queue routing strategy. Unfortunately, this pull down doesn't work, but you have round robin, which will equalize out over time. Most idle, there's been waiting the longest. Least calls, which is the least amount of connected calls from the queue. And then least offers, which is the combination of connected and missed calls. Hold treatment, you can upload a media file, .wav.mp3, recorded in mono. For the queues, you can actually upload a 5 megabyte file. The queue timeout measured in seconds is how much time your inbound callers can wait on hold. The queue call limit is how many people can wait on hold, right? So if I put this to 4, right, that means I can say four people can wait on hold. That's on top of whoever's already speaking to my staff members. If I left it at 0, that would mean I have no limit, right? So I can have as many callers waiting on hold as there's no limit. Timeout immediately if empty. If this is enabled, that means if I have no staff members logged into the queue and a call comes into the queue, the system will treat that caller as if they already hit this 30 second timeout. Now the escalation call flow after timeout is after that 30 seconds. Where am I sending the call? Right, I can leave it at none, meaning that the call just ends. I can send it to a voicemail box. I can send it to a different queue. I can send it back to my main menu, to a group, to a user. Most commonly sent to a voicemail box though. Now the zero out call flow, when it's set to none, that means it's disabled, right? If you select something from this pull down, then what you're doing is you're allowing the people waiting on hold to press 0, right? That will take them out of the queue and then whatever destination you selected, voicemail box, a different queue, different group, back to the main menu, etc. Agent behavior, agent recovery time, usually measured in seconds. That's from anywhere from 0 to 30 seconds is what we commonly see. And what it is if you have, say, set this to 15, when the agent is done with a call from the queue, the system will wait 15 seconds before it offers them another call from this queue, right? When I have it set to 0, when their call ends, if there's a call waiting, it will send it right to them. Force away on reject or missed. If an agent misses a call, and this is enabled, then the system will automatically put that agent in away status, meaning the system won't keep trying to offer calls to them. It will then move them on. Now the agent would have to mark themselves as ready again to be able to take calls. And then agent connect timeout measured in seconds. The default is 20, which is again plenty of time for VoIP phones. However, queues now can accept calls with cell phones or landlines, so you may want to increase that to 30 seconds. And then you would click on Save Changes or Create if you're making a new queue. Once you have queues created, over here on the left, you click on the members icon. This is the list of people or of my staff members who can be in my queues. If I click Manage Members up here at the top, so that list moved over to the right. This list on the left are people I can add, right? So now let's say I'm moving Aaron over. So now Aaron can be assigned to one of my queues. Then I go back to queues. If I click on a specific queue, right down here, I can click on agents. So now I can click and drag Aaron and he can be part of my queue. Right, I can click and drag multiple people if I want to. Once you have agents assigned, then you can choose to have those agents be managers, right? You would just click and drag them over to the manager side and then click on Save Changes. Now, for your staff members, right, they would, once they are assigned to queues, right, they would have this ACD queue option here. Let me end my session real quick. So beginning of their day, they would click on Begin Session. Right, that puts them into whatever queues they've been assigned to, but they start off in away status. Now, the first time they log in, it's recommended strongly that they click on the little phone icon here, and then they select one of their devices. Right now, it defaults to select all, but you want to click on it and select a specific device. Right, so that is the device the system will offer their queue calls to, and only that device. Right? So it's a way for them to know, oh, that's a queue call. I need to pick it up, especially if they have multiple phones. Then they click on the little phone icon again. They click where it says away to change their status to ready. So now calls come into the queue will be offered to me. Right? In terms of this page, if my little bar here on the left turns light blue, that means I'm being offered a queue call. If it turns dark blue, that means I've accepted an inbound queue call. If it's yellow, that means I'm on an external call, right? So either someone dialed my extension number directly or I made an outbound call. And if it's gold, that means I'm on wrap-up time. Right, the advantage of queues is as your staff members can change their status, right? So like when they go to lunch, they can mark themselves away, right? End of their day, they can click end session. Whereas in groups, they're in the group. That's it. They at best can click on do not disturb if they have that toggle up here on the right. The pro queues, they have additional option here for performance. So that way, as a manager or an admin, You can compare users to each other in terms of like their call handling. You have additional hold options or hold music options, right? You can have multiple files play, as well as the ability to announce the wait in line or their position. Also, the Pro Queues allow managers to eavesdrop on a call, whisper to their agent while they're on a call, or even barge in. Oh, ACD queues are an upgrade to existing plans, right? So it's possible you may need to change plans, and then on top of that, have an upgrade fee for each queue that you add. But for specifics of that, please talk to our account services team. Dynamic caller ID, this is a plan-specific feature. This allows you to create rules to change the outbound caller ID for your VoIP phones. So like I have here, I just called it 408, and I selected this phone number from my list of phone numbers on the account. And the rule is, whenever my staff members dial a 408 area code phone number from their VoIP phones, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 408 number. Right, so it looks like a local call to whoever they're calling. The other option you can do is this one up here, where I created a feature code. So now I'm relying on my staff members. When they pick up their phone, dial *550, then enter area code and phone number they're reaching out to. When they do that, the system will automatically change their outbound caller ID to this 323 phone number. And then I would click on Save Changes. So that's if you need to change caller ID fairly often between calls versus just setting up one specific caller ID for the VoIP phone or the user. Monitor is another plan-specific feature, but this allows you to see the status of your users. Right? Are they on calls or are they not? It doesn't matter which phone they're using as long as it's a device on their user. Right? Each call would have its own little box showing you which user is on a call and which device they're using. You can choose by who's available and who's busy. You can even specify by the specific phone being used. Up here on the inbound calls, each inbound call would have its own box, so you can see who's talking. For the parked calls, if someone has parked a call, you'll see the parking spot number here as well. So that way it makes it easier to pick up the parked call. That's a parking calls is a feature code. The recording manager, this will open up a new tab, or by default, will open up a new tab and take you to recordings.virtualpbx.com, which will ask you for your dash login information, and then you can see your call recordings there. If you're using AWS, the recordings manager will instead take you to your AWS page, and you can see your recordings there. And, again, at both places, you can listen to the recordings, download them, or delete them. Webhooks is a plan-specific feature. You'd actually want to talk to our sales team about this, but this allows you to link Dash to other software. This is basically programming, so not something for the faint of heart, or if you're not used to programming. And you need to have some other software on the other end, right? You just create new webhook and essentially fill out the form. To see some examples, under our YouTube channel, we have an introduction to Zapier webinar, which covers webhooks. You can also go to developer.virtualpbx.com to see sample code of basically sample code of what we've done to link Dash to other software. And then lastly, we have the user portal. This takes you to your own user portal, right? So each user has their own user portal. So if you don't have delete after notifications set up on your voicemail boxes, you can see your voicemails here. You can listen to them, download them, right, and change its status. Call history, you can see your own call history. You can set your date range to go back. Faxes, this only works if you have your own fax box, but you can see your fax history. The contact list shows your Dash contact list, right? This is just your other users, your auto attendants, your groups. Your standard users are not able to adjust this, right? Admins can, but that's because they can add new users, right? They can add groups, and that information would show up here. But this is not like a personalized list. It's basically a view only. The conference tab, This is where your user would adjust their own PIN numbers. Right, so they have a moderator PIN and a participant PIN number that they can adjust. Also here to the right, do people join muted or deafened? Are you playing entry and exit tones for when people arrive? While you're in a conference, if you click on here, the little plus icon, you can invite other Dash users to your conference. This lets you lock the conference. You can mute everybody, unmute everybody. You can end the conference call. Also, while in a conference, each participant and moderator has their own little box. So you can mute a specific person or even kick out a specific person if necessary. And then settings and devices. This is where your users would set up their own call forwarding. Right, they click on the little box, put +1 area code and phone number, save changes. So now the system will automatically forward to that phone number, as well as see the status of their devices. And that is everything. I haven't seen any questions, and I do apologize for running a bit long today, but I'm going to go ahead and end the stream. We'll be back again next Tuesday at 10 a.m. Thank you very much, and have a wonderful day.